Good afternoon. This is Dominic with TheBackVlog. Recently, I finished Nier Replicant. Let me see if I can do this on the first try without looking. Version 1.22474487139 ellipses. Was I correct? I was correct. Version 1.22474487139 ellipses. I picked this up last year because obviously I've heard wonderful things about Nier Automata and its classic status. It's immediate classic status, despite the fact that it's less than 10 years old. And I guess that doesn't make it less than a classic. But this is the first game in. It's the first game in the Nier series, but I have since learned that the Nier series is, and it's only 2 games so far, but it's a spin-off, similar to Persona is to Shin Megami Tensei. It's a spin-off to the Drakengard series, and I don't really know anything about the Drakengard games, but like canonically speaking, I think this game takes place after Drakengard 2. So, yeah, I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to say anything about that at all. First of all, I want to talk about the music. I wrote a note saying that the music is Clair Obscur adjacent, though not quite as good. After finishing that, I do stand by that. It does have like the instrumentation and orchestral elements, as well as kind of the haunting vocal performances of it. But first of all, I think the music of Clair Obscur really, it hits such emotional peaks that the music in this game doesn't really do for me. And I think because the soundtrack of this game is so small, you hear the tracks, you hear a lot of the tracks over and over again. And when you go to do the wow, that was a good jump, Robin. When you go to do the other endings, it does start to kind of weigh in on you a little bit. She better not bark outside. She's looking out the window right now, and the second that she barks, that curtain is closing. Do you hear me? Robin, do you hear me? The second you say anything up there, say goodbye to your view and my light. That's not going to be good, actually. I kind of need that. I need the daylight. The side quests are really bad, and like I don't want to just trash this game, because I really did like this game, and I will get to the positives in a little bit, but I've really got to get the negatives out of the way, just because I feel like ideally I won't be thinking about the negatives the more I think back on this game, and I really don't think I will, given what I've seen, given the entire package. But the side quests are super repetitive. The gameplay is a bit repetitive. There's not really a lot of variation in the styles of combat, and the quest variation is not really there either. A lot of the quests are just like really bad fetch quests, kind of there to waste your time, and the return is not worth it. So with the exception of like quests that you need to get weapons for, I would recommend not doing any quests at all, personally. And unfortunately, you do need all of the weapons to get one of the endings in this game. And one of the quests to get one of the weapons, the Ruined Treasure Map quest, was aggravating. If you know, you know. Stylistically, like artistically speaking, it's really cool. And like, the gameplay, even though, like I said, I have my issues with it, it kind of gave me a Kingdom Hearts vibe. And I've been really thinking about Kingdom Hearts a lot recently. And I really want to play Kingdom Hearts again. And I don't have any of them, but perhaps I will get some of them, or I will get the collection or something at some point soon. But yeah, Nier is kind of like, it reminds me of Kingdom Hearts in the way that it plays. And it reminds me of Eco in the way it looks, like with the shadow monsters and the kind of like ancient civilization looking kind of thing, and like, far fantasy style of it. I don't know. It gives me very what's the, I don't remember his first name, but it gives me heavy Ueda vibes. The boss encounters in this game are really sick. And, you know, they start to get played out the more that you fight them in the other endings. But that's kind of my fault for jumping into them all right away. But the first time around, like, a lot of them are kind of like puzzles to solve, kind of like Shadow of the Colossus. And they're among some of the most memorable parts of the game. It's the parts of the game that like really shift up the monotony of what you're doing. So I really appreciate the boss battles here. Among the things that I hear about Nier Replicant is, and Nier Automata, but I don't know anything about that yet, but is that Nier Replicant is a story that can only be told in video games. And when I hear something like that, it makes me think that it is using the format of video games as a narrative tool. And I think that's a really interesting concept. And when things do that, like what I'm about to talk about, when a piece of media is using the format in which it is presenting a narrative to you to like present that narrative in addition to the story just by itself, I think there's a really, I feel like there's a lot of strength with that. And I was curious about where Nier was going until I finally got to the Forest of Myth for the first time. And the way that the Forest of Myth is presented to you is like, it shows you like the text box of the dude talking to you. And then it starts to like break the format in a House of Leaves kind of style. Which, you know, House of Leaves, if you know anything about, uses the format of a novel tangibly to tell the story and to get the point across of what that story is telling as well. I have a note here saying that there's an implication that the player is literally controlling the actions of the characters. Unfortunately, it didn't go down that road. What was being implied was, you know, characters in the game pulling the strings, but at first I thought it was implying that like you, the player, were like influencing things, and I thought that was really interesting too. But yeah, the Forest of Myth section was really cool, and then, you know, the more it happens, the less it becomes effective, unfortunately for me. But the first time it happens, it's like it's a genuine surprise. Another thing, actually, not to go back to the negatives or anything, not to say that this is a negative, this is kind of a self-imposed problem. But while the story was incredible, and the way that it was told was incredible, and the themes that it tells are, you know, they're full of despair and, you know, moral grayness. I feel like because I am a stickler for this kind of stuff, I went with the Japanese dub, and I think there was kind of a disconnect because, you know, the way that a lot of that story is told is, well, not a lot of the story, but, you know, there's like a lot of conversations that'll happen, and like it'll show you text boxes in the top left corner while like in the middle of combat. So it's like I'm kind of trying to like direct my attention to the text box at the top and the combat scenarios at the same time, because a lot of important information is given there sometimes. And also it's a localization issue as well, because I know some Japanese. I kind of like to use Japanese video games to kind of reinforce my learning a little bit. And some of the English translations that they opted for was not accurate to what was being said. And that threw me off a bit at some points too. And also, because Kayane is a very potty-mouthed character, I don't know if the English dub had this, but in the Japanese dub, they put like these like sensors in there, and I thought that was really odd. It was a bit comedic. I don't know. I don't think it was meant to be, but it did come across as that, unfortunately. Yeah, it was just a weird artistic direction, I guess. I'm not going to talk much about the other endings, with the exception of the last one. And spoilers, just in case I get into it, I probably will, because I feel like not getting into spoilers hinders my thoughts on this game, or just in general. Because I think when you find out what's going on after, like during the second ending, like with the shades and how you can understand like what they're actually saying and everything. It really does kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and really show you what is truly going on. But once ending E happens, which is the ending that's actually exclusive to this version of the game to kind of connect it more to Automata, I was absolutely floored. Before I did the last ending, I thought the game was just pretty good. And it is a pretty good game, but like the final ending really sold it for me. You go to the Forest of Myth, I think. Yeah, you go to the Forest of Myth, and inside of the Great Tree are these H.R. Geiger-esque like wires and just really, I don't know, like metallic vines and everything. And it's such a departure from the artistic style that you have grown accustomed to for like the past 40, 50 odd hours. And it's like, it's a mind fuck, man. And Kaine has no idea what's going on. And like the further she goes into it and it starts to break apart the HUD of the game and change everything, that's the kind of thing that I finally understand why it's a story that can only be told through games. And you know, the loading screen is different and everything is just is really incredible. And the final cutscene with Kaine and Emil and the protagonist, and the way that actually, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. The ending of ending D, when you give Kaine her humanity and basically wipe yourself from existence, the way that it erases your save is not like anything I've ever seen in a game before. Because like whenever a game erases your save, it's just kind of like immediate. And it's like, okay, your save file is gone. But this, it meticulously goes through every single option in the menu. And it's like taking control and it's all being wiped from existence. And it's really interesting. And, you know, whenever you go to restore the save in ending E, you put in the name of the save file, and it's basically like a password kind of system. And like all of that like comes back, and it brings your old save back, and it's really interesting. It's kind of similar to Death Stranding 2, where it asks you to put your birthday in. And the reason that you're putting your birthday in is so that it can utilize it basically as a password for later on. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, so when they're in the giant flower, the giant lunar tier, you know, it's like symbolism and everything. And you know, Kaine is basically saying like, through everything, you know, good and bad, everything that we do, and the most important thing is that we're together. And you know, with her backstory and like how, you know, alone and ostracized she was, as well as Emil, you know, I thought that was a really powerful message. And yeah, that ending really floored me. I'm not gonna really get too into this as well, but and like, you know, there's like the heavy implication in the game. I don't think they ever come out and flat out say it, but like because of the implication, I did look into it. I think it's really cool that they kind of had, I don't want to say it's like transgender representation, because it's not really transgender, but it is intersex, where it's kind of like a person who I guess was kind of born with, you know, with both genitalia. And I think that's not really something I've ever really seen represented in anything before. And I think that's really important because, you know, for people who are intersex out there, like there's not really much to, you know, relate to. And I think that's really cool. I do kind of disagree with the decision to kind of sexualize her with her outfit and everything, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think Kaine is a really interesting character. I think Emil's a really interesting character. I think he's a really tragic character. I think those two, and I think they're both in Automata. I know Emil is because he's kind of like the mascot of Nier. That's Yoko Taro's mask. Yeah, I really don't know. I'm really curious, having played this, where the Nier Automata is going to go. I know this also takes place thousands of years after Nier Replicant. So yeah, I'm truly interested to see like where we go from here. And I don't know, maybe by the time no, that's not. I was gonna say maybe by the time I finish Nier Automata, we'll have an announcement for the third Nier game, but I think I'll probably finish Nier Automata pretty soon. So yeah, we'll see.